In 2012, we had a lot of data breaches. In fact, if you were keeping score, there were about 50% more data breaches disclosed in 2012 than there were in 2011. And about a year ago, beginning of 2012, those of us in the security world were all walking around calling 2011 the year of the data breach. It just keeps going on. There were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of data breaches reported over 2012. A lot of little ones, some big ones, some really fascinating ones. I've got a smattering of sort of logos here that were all, unfortunately, in the news in 2012 for having a data breach. And if you look at some of the names here, these are, in large part, some pretty sophisticated organizations, at least from an IT perspective. Companies like LinkedIn and Yahoo are pure internet businesses built on technology, Adobe as well. Global Payments, a big payment processor. You've got some real business here that were impacted. So it's not just the sort of soft target mom and pop shops that are being breached. Anyone's a target today, and when attackers sort of point their put the target on your forehead, it's really hard to protect yourself if you haven't prepared in advance. So who's doing the hacking? Who's enabling the hacking? It's a couple of different things that are coming together here. When you look at how data breaches occurred, the main sources or the main enablers have been negligent insiders and malicious attacks. So you get this combination of malicious attackers on the outside and negligent insiders on the inside that are either making mistakes that are leaking data or making mistakes that are enabling the malicious attackers to break in. At the same time, we've got sort of the fringe. We've got cyber espionage that's happening. And so that cyber espionage is happening on a fairly large scale, but only in very, very high value operations. Then we've got the sort of hacker collectives, the hacktivists, folks like Anonymous, and WellSec mostly went to jail, but there have been 20 new groups that have popped up to take their place in the sort of hacker world out there. And then you've got the traditional insider threat, the disgruntled employees, the lazy employees who aren't doing their job right or who are specifically doing their job wrong and abusing the access that they've been given and are taking your data. Data breaches aren't cheap. Every year the Ponemon Institute does a great cost of a data breach study, and every year it's really expensive. Costs are estimated at about $200 a record. So if you lose 1 million records, which is a small data breach today, that's $200 million in breach-related costs. I mean, that adds up dramatically. $5.5 million was the average cost of a data breach last year. So there were a lot of small data breaches, but even small business gets breached and it costs them a lot of money. And the average cost in terms of lost business was about $3.1 million. So that's like abnormal customer turnover. You know, it's costing more to acquire new customers. It's just losing your reputation because your data is stolen. In 2012, there was over 27 million records stolen, and more than 90% of those records came out of the database year after year after year. We see similar numbers in terms of the percent of records that are stolen from the databases. The vast majority of data that's stolen today is stolen out of databases, and the reason for that is very simple. The vast majority of data that's stored today is stored in databases. So if you're going to steal data, well, data lives in databases. So databases are kind of the place to go, sort of the house for where the data lives. The issue is that too many organizations just haven't taken the security of their databases seriously enough, which has led to this situation where hackers can breach databases, can pull the data out of those databases and walk away with it. Let's talk a little bit about the risks that we're facing in 2013. For a long time, I guess since the beginning of information security, organizations have really focused on the perimeter. We put up firewalls. We built antivirus. We deployed intrusion prevention. We deployed data leakage prevention. We've deployed endpoint security. We've really worked and worked and worked at protecting the perimeter of our network and the endpoints of the network. And we've done that to try to protect the assets that are inside the data center. We're not trying to protect the endpoints, right? We're really trying to protect the data that's sitting in the data center, in the databases of the core applications. The thing is that these years of this approach, this perimeter-focused approach, have demonstrated one thing pretty clearly, and that's a perimeter-focused approach doesn't secure the data in your data centers. There's just too many data breaches, too much data being stolen for it to be believable that network firewalls and DLP and things like that are really going to solve the problem. So organizations, if they want to stop the data leakage, have really got to secure the data in the database where it lives. I mean, that's where the data is 99.9% of the time. And like the cash in a bank, which is stored in a vault, we need to put our data in a vault when we put it in the database. In terms of the risks that those databases are facing, the biggest risk today, and it's been this way for a long time, is SQL injection. We continue to deploy very poorly coded web applications that make it easy for attackers to inject SQL and talk directly to the databases that sit behind those web apps. At the same time, inside the database itself, we're finding a lot of SQL injection vulnerabilities. The ability to stuff SQL into a table name or a column name or into a parameter of a function or a stored procedure and run that injected SQL as an administrator of the database is a fairly common vulnerability to find. So that's really biting a lot of us out there and making it difficult to protect the data in the databases. Number two is password attacks. So we've obviously got user accounts with passwords, and people have been picking weak passwords forever for their accounts. That same situation exists in the databases. We find weak passwords in production databases every single day. At the same time, some new advanced password attacks have come out that target databases that even allow an attacker to break very strong passwords without causing any alarms, without any significant amount of password guessing or failed logins. So we're facing a situation where there's a lot of bad passwords just being used in databases, and then there's these emerging vulnerabilities that allow attackers to compromise even strong passwords. The next risk on the list is improper and ineffective access controls. Databases have so much power in their access control systems. It gives you incredible flexibility in how you're going to deploy your access rules into who can see what, who can modify what. That's great, but at the same time, all that power leads to a lot of complexity, and all that complexity, in the end, is really not beneficial to security. It's just easy to get lost in the access controls of your database and have your access controls that you think you're deploying be totally ineffective because of the complexity of the system and the ability for access to be granted through multiple paths. It's very rare for organizations to do thorough reviews on the actual access controls they have in place on their databases. And most organizations, when they do those reviews for the first time, find that they were really in an out-of-control situation. So it's an easy way to have a data breach by just giving folks privileges that they shouldn't have. We see that happening a lot. Number 4 are database Java exploits. Most of the big database vendors are shipping Java subsystems with the databases. So that means that you can run Java code on the database server. Very cool for building apps. But we've seen a lot of vulnerabilities with those Java systems. In fact, in every major database vendor's Java implementation, we've seen vulnerabilities that allow any user in the database, regardless of their privilege level, to load arbitrary Java code onto the database server and execute that Java code as the server administrator, at the service account that runs the database. So that's effectively the ability for any database user to load and run malware on the database servers, and we've seen this with every major database vendor that's released Java. So too many databases aren't patched. That means too many Java systems are out there not being used and sitting vulnerable. It's a big risk this year. And then finally, misconfigured database security settings. This has been a problem forever. The database security systems are complicated and confusing, and most of them are turned off by default. So you've got to turn these security systems on right from the start before you start using the database and building your apps around them. Otherwise, you find that when you go in after the fact, your apps don't work when you change those security settings. So configuring the database correctly, understanding what that even means, is a real challenge. It continues to be a challenge. There's a lot of great resources out there, but folks either aren't looking to them or are too tied up in the mess that they've already got deployed to really spend the time to properly deploy their new system. there's plenty of risk. What can we do about it? Well, we can help you. Application security, we're database security experts. We build database security software, and there's a lot we can do to help your organizations to lock down your databases, to avoid being the next on the list of organizations that were breached. So we've got a couple of products. I'm going to just touch on the products very briefly, and then I'm going to focus more of my time here on the process that you want to follow for securing your databases. From the product side, we build two different solutions for the database security space. The solutions do a lot of the same thing, but they're targeted towards different user groups. App Detective Pro is targeted for security practitioners, for internal, external auditors, and really for security engagement type work. So App Detective Pro is laptop software, load it up, and point and shoot, run a database assessments, and very, very quickly produce results on the security status of a database. DB Protect is an enterprise system for permanently installed software that will secure all of the databases across your enterprise. It'll scan the databases for vulnerabilities, understand the users, monitor them, and it's really designed for IT security teams and DBA teams to use on a full-time basis. Now, it really doesn't matter what database types you're running out there. So whether it's Oracle, SQL Server, IBM DB2, Sybase, MySQL, you might be running that on a mainframe, on Windows, on Solaris, Unix, Linux. Our solutions are going to cover it, and our Shatter knowledge base is going to provide you with insight into all of the vulnerabilities in all of these systems. So let's talk about the process. So our software is going to help you to implement this 5-step process to secure your databases. And this combines both proactive, preventative controls with reactive controls that give you that full breadth of security kind of from start to finish. So we're going to walk through the process here. We'll get into each step in detail. We're going to start out by looking at the database inventory. So we're going to go out and figure out which databases you're running and let you know for sure which databases are resident on your network right now. Then we're going to identify and help you to eliminate the vulnerabilities in your databases. So we've got to figure out where the holes are. Do we have weak passwords? Do we have misconfigured settings? Is our Java system vulnerable? We need to find all that stuff out so that we can fix as much of it as we can. Then we're going to analyze the privileges in your databases and show you exactly who the privileged users are. You need to understand who has access to your sensitive data. You need to know who can configure and adjust the way the database runs, shut down the database. Then you want to limit those privileges to what folks need to do their jobs. So that's the next step in the proactive preventative phase. After that, the truth is we're not going to be able to fix everything. Some apps we bought right off the shelf, and they're going to require some insecure settings, or they're not going to support the latest patch levels. So we're going to have some issues in the databases that we just can't resolve easily. That puts us in reactive mode. And so what we're going to do is we're going to monitor the databases. We want to look at how people are using the databases 24 hours a day and make sure that that use is appropriate. And then finally, when we see inappropriate or suspicious activity, we need to be able to respond and take action immediately to stop a security incident before it turns into a real event where data leaks the building. So inventory databases. Let me talk about what DB Protect and App Detective will do for you. They'll go out and they'll intelligently locate all the databases that are running on the network. So you give our software some information about your network, and it'll go out there and actually figure out where all the databases are on the network. Now you could do this manually as well. You just have to go from system to system on the network, log into each system, and examine that system to see what services are running, what's listening on the network. It's a time-consuming process. That's why we write software to do it. It's something that's, once you figure out how to do it with software, it's at least a fairly quick process. Now, once you've identified all the databases that are on the network, you've got a complete and accurate inventory of the databases, and you can compare that with anything you've got stored in your own home-built inventory system or in a CMDB that you're using. Now, here's a quick look at DB Protect. Once you've got databases, once you've got DB Protect, you can go out and you can run jobs to inventory your databases. You can create a job give the software information about your network, as I mentioned, and it'll go out and it'll find the databases that are out there, and then give you some simple reports. So counts of how many databases that are there, and you can see sort of on the left side of my screen that count of databases on one of our networks where there's 240-something SQL servers and a couple of MySQLs, 20-something Oracles, so on and so forth, along with a detailed breakdown of version information on the right. So we can give you a really quick snapshot of, here's my database environment, here's the inventory of systems we've got out there, including the version info. And we can even show you which databases were just added to the network. So as you start to track your database inventory over time, you can see the systems that were recently added, and you can help protect yourself against rogue systems that were added without being part of the security process. So if you see an unexpected system pop up on the network that wasn't tied to some kind of approval, you can know that that's happening and you can pull it down. Now once we get a grip on our database inventory, we want to look at the vulnerability posture. So we want to identify the vulnerabilities that are there, and then we want to fix the issues that we can. Specifically, we want to fix the high-risk issues. Now the way you're going to find out about these vulnerabilities, well, you can either read the patch disclosures from the vendors, which are vague and very little information, if any at all, about what vulnerabilities are out there. You can bang around on the internet and do some research, or you can come to Team Shatter. Shatter is the largest dedicated database security research team in the world. Team Shatter reported more than 80% of the vulnerabilities that database vendors fixed over the last several years. These are the folks that are really top of the game in database security research. They're the ones who provide the knowledge base for AppSec Inc.'s products. So with the Team Shatter knowledge base, you'll get information and details along with the ability to identify thousands of vulnerabilities. Weak passwords, buffer overflows, misconfigurations, weak access controls, default passwords, missing patches. Even when a database 0-day comes out, and we've seen researchers drop O-days at security conferences with fairly regular basis around databases lately, our software will be updated within about a day or two to detect exploits of those O-days, to tell you which systems are vulnerable to those O-days, to really give you some comprehensive protection there. Now you go out and you run vulnerability scans against your databases, or I suppose you could do this manually by logging into each database individually and manually examining the patch level, manually examining all the configuration settings, some of the access control, and then doing some testing with passwords by using some freeware that you can download from out there. Our products will bundle that all together and just do it for you. And once you run your scans, you get some great reports out of it. So you'll be able to track, for example, risk on your databases. Every database gets assigned a risk score based on the vulnerabilities that are found there. And then you can track and trend those risk scores over time to make sure that you're managing things appropriately and managing them down. You can also identify your riskiest databases, your riskiest groups of databases, your riskiest business units, and put some scrutiny there to get things fixed. Now, once you've got your arms around what you're vulnerable to, and you start to put a fix plan in place, that fix plan is going to take some time, because we can't, even if we're cleared to make the patch or make the configuration change, our applications are going to support it. It's likely that we're going to have to schedule downtime to make those fixes, and it may take months to schedule that downtime. Now, in the meantime, we need to move forward with our assessments, and we're going to next look at access control. So who's got access to sensitive data in the database? Who's a privileged user? How can we manage segregation of duties? We really need to enforce least privileges. Now this is something very hard to do manually. It's possible, but really difficult to look at a database and figure out who's got access to what data, who can see your sensitive data, and to determine who's a privileged user. It's hard to determine who's a privileged user, not only because it's hard to determine a user's privilege set, but because it's hard to define what it even means to be a privileged user. Well, these are problems that software is well suited to solve, and DB-Protect solves these issues for you. So it'll help you understand who has access to your sensitive data. It'll tell you exactly who your privileged users are, and then it will start to combine the data in the system. So we scan your database. We identify who the most privileged users are in your database. We scan that same database and identify where you've got weak passwords. if any of those privileged users have a weak password, they're going to end up on this toxic combination dashboard where we list users with high privileges that have weak passwords. These are your most risky accounts in all of your databases, the ones where it's easy to guess the password, and once you do, you have DBA level access to the system. So we'll help you to understand the vulnerabilities we find in context. You get some really interesting contextual information here when we tie together this user is a privileged user and this user has a weak password. That tells you where you really need to take action immediately. So we'll combine that information and really help you focus on toxic combinations. Now, we've done our analysis of the databases. We know what's on the network. We know where the vulnerabilities are, and we've got a plan to fix them. We understand users' privileges, and hopefully we've got a plan to reduce any unnecessary privileges that we've got. The next step is to start monitoring our systems as quickly as we can so that we can mitigate the risk from those issues while we're waiting for them to be solved. So we're going to have to monitor our databases. We're going to have to watch what everyone does in the database all day, every day. And we're going to have to examine all that activity and make sure that it's legitimate, that it's appropriate, that it's not, for example, an attack trying to exploit one of the unpatched vulnerabilities, or a user trying to take advantage of their privileges and read sensitive data that they shouldn't be reading. So with DB Protect, you can actually monitor what your databases are doing all the time. You can do that in a way that doesn't require DBA involvement or control, which allows you to watch what your administrators are doing. It's really, really important, of course, because your administrators have unfettered access to your databases, and those databases have your most sensitive data. So we need to make sure that the employees we trust are behaving in a trustworthy way. DB Protect will let you monitor anyone's access to the database. It'll tell you who's had access to what data and when, who's made what changes and when. But even more importantly than that, DB Protect will detect attacks against your databases using the vulnerabilities that are present. So we scan your databases and tell you what you're vulnerable to. We can monitor those databases and tell you if anybody's exploiting those unpatched vulnerabilities that are out there. What you see here is a screenshot from DB Protect's real-time monitoring system. And this is showing risky behavior that we've observed in the databases. This is your sort of alert screen. And here we see color-coded alerts, high, medium, and low-risk alerts that we've collected from the databases. These are attacks, inappropriate access. And here we get a real tremendous amount of detail into everything that's happening on the system. We'll see which databases are affected, which database user was involved, which host on the network or off the network they connected to that database from, and what software they used to make that connection. We'll see exactly what SQL was run, when it was run, pardon me, you'll see where that data flowed to as a result of that, where the target was of the SQL. So all that information is there, along with a detailed knowledge base article written from Team Shatter, so you understand why this is popping up on your alert screen and why you need to worry about it. So when something is popping up on that alert screen, when you do have to worry about it, it's time to take action. It's time to respond to suspicious activity. So that means, of course, we've separated the authorized from the unauthorized. And once we're looking at just that suspicious activity, and we're going to make that determination, of course, by having a security policy in place that tells us what's appropriate for users' access, that tells us what kind of access is okay and what's not. We're going to have a vulnerability knowledge base in place that includes a full cadre of attack signatures that know exactly what a database exploit looks like. And we're going to effectively evaluate all the activity that we see against that policy and that set of attack signatures, and then we're going to be able to take a reaction. And that reaction may be something very simple. It may just be alert the IT team. You know, pick up the phone and send an email or send a text. It may be open a trouble ticket in a system like Remedy. It may be alert a SIM system, like send an alert to ArcSight, for example. It may take more interesting action, like initiate malware scans. So perhaps the suspicious activity we saw looked like HTML script code being written into your database. That's a good sign of cross-site scripting attack. So we can kick off a malware scan of your website to find out if you do, in fact, have a cross-site scripting vulnerability there, and if this is in fact an exploit that we're seeing. Or maybe you want to take the most heavy-handed approach and just block the suspicious activity. Hey, that's a database attack. I'm just going to stop it in its tracks before the damage is done. I'm going to do that automatically, and then I'm going to alert the IT team so they can come in and do an investigation of what went wrong. You need to have that incident response process in place, and DB Protect will implement your incident response process for you in a fully automated way. So you'll be able to choose what you want to do when you see specific suspicious activity, how you want the system to react. With this kind of attack, you want to block. With that kind of attack, you want to alert the SIM system. With the other kind of attack, you want to do everything. You'll have all that flexibility with DB Protect. And DB Protect will present you with fabulous analytics to really help you visualize the data that it's collected, to give you a look at the security posture of your database, to give you a look at the compliance status of your database, to give you a look at the level of threat, the level of risk, and to make that, that information available at an enterprise level so that your executives can look and from the very top see the security information for all of the databases across the enterprise at one glance, and then drill down from there into individual business units, into individual groups, into individual databases, so the different layers of management throughout the stack, all the way through to the information security teams and the database administrators, can see and understand the risk posture and the security status of every single database, every application, every group of databases out there. Now, this is big software, and it could be real complicated to make it work, but we've been in this business for a very long time. We've been doing database security since about 2002. We've helped thousands of organizations to secure their databases, and through that time, we've learned a lot about deploying database security software. And now, here in 2013, with our DB Protect 6.4 and App Detective 8.0, we've got the best software that this company has ever been shipping, the most easy to use, easy to deploy database security software on the planet. So we'll go out there and deploy a simple system that without any agent software will understand where your databases are, identify all your vulnerabilities, and help you to implement least privilege. From there, we can install an agent and monitor all the activity on your database and implement incident response. We've got a great self-service operational model that allows you to give each of your DBAs access to the system to see and scan their own databases without giving them the ability to poke around at each other's databases to see data they shouldn't be seeing. And that's all done through our role-based access control system. It really allows you to control information sharing in a flexible and powerful way. The system provides reporting for all levels of the stack, compliance reports, security reports, remediation reports, including fixed scripts for the DBAs. We really make it easy for you to go from, I haven't got a database security program yet, to my databases are secure. So let's sum it up. We've got Team Shatter. Team Shatter is the leading database security research team. They've got your back when you're using AppSec Inc. software. They're out there finding the vulnerabilities and building the intelligence into our platform to identify that stuff. Precision database activity monitoring, which combines vulnerability assessment, database rights review, understanding users' rights, and then monitoring for any of those vulnerabilities that aren't fixed, for any of those privileges that you can't revoke, and being able to respond to that is our precision approach for database activity monitoring. And we've made it easy to deploy, easy to roll out, and easy to bring together your DBAs, your auditors, and your IT security teams to collaborate around database security and really make something happen. This software has been deployed at some of the largest organizations in the world, and it's been deployed at some mom-and-pop shops as well. So if you've got 3 databases, we've got a solution to help you. If you've got 30,000 databases, we've got a solution to help you as well. So that wraps it up for me. I can see that we've got some questions already, so I'm going to open the floor to a little bit of Q&A, and we'll just take them as they come. All right, so we've got a question from Leandro. Leandro asks, what's DB Protect's performance impact on the database? Gee, I hear that question every single day. So DB Protect does a few things. We discover databases, We scan the databases for vulnerabilities and user rights, and then we monitor the databases for suspicious activity and for attacks and to give you an audit trail. Database discovery, no performance impact. Scanning the database takes about 5 to 10 minutes, and during that 5 to 10 minutes, we're running some very simple single table select statements. That tends to have no performance impact on your database as well, but we will be running some simple queries. Then we move into monitoring. Now with monitoring, we're going to be looking at your database 24/7. And if we're monitoring in our typical kind of use case, we're going to monitor all the activity of your DBAs and your privileged users. We're going to monitor for any attacks, any abuse or misuse, and we're going to monitor any access to sensitive data. And when we're monitoring for all of those things, you're going to see about a 2% impact on the performance of your database. So there will be some impact, but the impact is really small. So if you had queries that were running in 1 second before, those queries will now run in 1.02 seconds. So you'll see a little bit of an impact there, a little bit of an impact in your resource utilization, around 2%. It's pretty minimal, and we've worked really hard to keep that impact down. And we think that the information you get as a result of that, this clear information about database attacks and database abuse is well worth that couple of percent. So I've got a question about availability of the software. We've actually got App Detective up on our website. So if you come up to the website, you can on AppSecInc.com, you'll find a link right on the front page to a free download of App Detective Pro. App Detective Pro is great, so go ahead, download that software, just load it up on your desktop or laptop system. It comes with a free license that you can use to scan one of your databases. It'll give you great results on that database and give you a really good example for the kind of issues that AppSecInc software will help you to uncover. That's a great offer. The software is there. It's available. You can grab it anytime for free. So there's another question coming in from Krishna Kumar. And the question is, has the tool been deployed or is it deployable to fix vulnerabilities autonomously without the information of DBAs based on certain rules? So thanks, Krishna Kumar. We actually have been deployed to fix database vulnerabilities autonomously, but we don't do it by ourselves. So DB Protect doesn't make changes to your databases. We'll tell you how to fix your vulnerabilities, but we won't actually patch your database for you or make configuration changes. However, there is software out there that'll do it. Both BMC and HP have database automation suites that will make changes to your databases. And we've done integration with that software with some of our customers so that they actually get a scan run of their database with DB Protect. The results are shipped over to the database automation system, and the database automation system then runs the fix procedure that DB Protect recommends in order to close the vulnerabilities that have been found. So we do have a few customers in production that are doing that. It's not that common. Most organizations want to carefully look at database changes and go through a control process with their production systems, but it is something we can facilitate. All right. So next question comes in from Miguel. How difficult is the implementation of the software? Well, Miguel, it's very simple to implement our software. App Detective, download it, install it on your laptop. It's going to take you about 20 minutes to download it and about 10 minutes to install it, and implementation is done. At that point, you're ready to go, and you can start scanning databases. DB Protect's a little more work. You can plan it for about half a day to get DB Protect installed. You're going to download that software. It's probably about a 45-minute download. Once you get the software in, you can install it on the Windows server. The install takes about 40 minutes. Once you get that install done, you get a little bit of configuration, and you're off and running and scanning databases. Leandro asks, how is the licensing based? So DB Protect is licensed what we call per unit under test. We basically license it by the installation of database software. So if you're running SQL Server, we license by the instance. If you're running Oracle, we license by the SID. If you're running DB2, we license by the database. If you're running DB2 on the mainframe, we license by the subsystem. If you're running Sybase, we license by the data server. And if you're running MySQL, we license by the database server. Wendell asks my name. I'm Josh Shaul. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for Application Security.